Hello, my beautiful Aries. It's time for your weekly reading, May 8th to 14th, 2021. I hope it's going to be a good one. I too am Aries, if you don't know that already. So I'm very excited about this reading. I'm going to do a little bit of a different spread today, one I've actually never done before. I'm going to pull 3 cards which are going to be about you and about me, and just generally about us. And then I'm going to pull 3 more cards, which will be about what is going on. It could represent obstacles. It could represent influences, just general activities. And then I will do 3 more, which will be the outcome or the future, because it'll be moving into the future as you move into next week and maybe into even the farther away future. And then it will also answer your question if you have a specific question, and just give you some stuff to work with as you move throughout the week and the month. And because this is a general reading, it is very general, but I'm sure if you think about it, you will figure out how to apply it to your own situation. Oh, the Hierophant wants to jump out at us. I bet I know what that's about. Let's find out. Let's figure out what we've got. So the first 3 cards. Wow. Okay. So we Aries, and I do generalize about us Aries more than, say, some other signs. There are a few signs that I can generalize about a little more than others. But that is not to say you might be the type of Aries who is not as typical as, say, I am. I very rarely say I'm typical in any situation, but in the situation of being the quintessential Aries, I can honestly say I really am. So I don't really like to do things that are quote unquote typical, which is probably why I don't love the Hierophant card, which is all about society and kind of doing the normal things in society. However, because everybody's different and everybody has their complex little aspects, I do love traditional things in spite of the fact that I don't necessarily like to be traditional. And of course, there are differences between traditional 25 years ago and traditional now. And just because you like things that were traditional 25 years ago, and you might, or let's say if you didn't like things that were traditional 25 years ago and you decided to go against everything, that does not necessarily mean you would go against everything like people do now, because a lot of things that people do now are kind of things that are jumping on the bandwagon. It's sort of like when a person is a teenager and they do what everybody else is doing and they think they're being unique by doing what everybody else is doing. So as much as I might say one thing, it doesn't apply to every time frame. It doesn't apply to every person. There are, differences within the differences. So bearing that in mind when we're talking about society and the card, the Hierophant, I'll give you some examples. The Hierophant can mean marriage. It can mean any kind of ceremony for a life milestone, like a graduation, a retirement, things like that. It can mean just sort of going along with the status quo, which is kind of the part I'm not so gung-ho on, but, then there are people who say they're not gung-ho on that, and then they always do it, and then there are people who really never follow anything, even if it was completely, a positive thing. So it's just so hard to gauge. People are not really that easy. Well, I shouldn't say nobody's easy to put into a box, but tons of people really don't fit into a box. So what's that? I have fluff on me. Thought I saw a blue thing on me earlier. I know it shouldn't matter, and it probably doesn't, but it's bugging me. Okay. So I'm just going to say that for me right now, there are so many things that people are just running into doing and believing everything they're told. Like, I'm not going to go into it, but I'm sure all of you know what I'm talking about. There are things that society, no matter what the thing is, everybody's just buying into it. So just going along with the program. So that is a concern of mine. But even if you don't want to do the thing, it still affects us. Like, it affects us because maybe whatever the thing may be, our family and friends are doing it, or it's affecting what we're able to do in life, that kind of thing. So with and believe it or not, even though I might be talking about specific things without trying to sound specific, there are other things that have those exact same components. So even if the things that are happening now, and yes, this is a very unique time in history, but even if those things were not happening, there could be other things as dire or almost as dire that could be happening that are also the sorts of things I'm talking about. I know this is really vague, but it's vague because I am talking to multiple people and everybody thinks differently. Okay. And then I'm also being vague because I'm also Aries and I have certain things that I think or that apply to me. And I'm trying not to completely apply them to you because you might not have the same situations at all. I mean, literally at all, because since this is something that goes out into the entire world, some of the things that we think apply to everybody don't always. So, if that makes any sense to you, let's just put it like this. These three cards are relating to you currently. And this card is about following society on some level, whether it's a nice way that you like or that I like, whether it's tradition, whether it's, a marriage, whether it's, holidays, anything that we like, or whether it's some other part that we don't like where everybody follows a certain mode that we don't think everybody should have to go along with. So whichever way it is for you, it's affecting us right now on some level. The Knight of Pentacles. Now, I can see how if you're at all incensed about the flavor of this card, then it completely makes sense why these two come up. These two cards, being that I'm the typical Aries, I love this card. I don't love this card, even though it's a perfectly good card that we definitely need. But both of these cards have a very distinct message, which makes complete sense if you're not thrilled with everything going on in this card. Traditionally, typically, whatever. So the Knight of Pentacles, he is a strong and brave knight like the other knights, but he does not charge forward into battle. Now, we Aries have been accused many times in life, probably fairly, to be impulsive, to be brave without there being any sense of being brave, to rush into any situation and to be very rash, to be very wild, to be very impetuous, all of that stuff, and to have very few, if any, of these qualities, which is to hold back, to plan things out very carefully. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to everything. I mean, even though I'm the normal Aries, I don't want to ruin my financial future and do anything so impulsive that there will never be any money again in my life. I as much as it might be fun to jump off a cliff, it's not something I choose to do without a parachute, simply because I would like there to be a tomorrow for me. So as impulsive as we may be, you might be good in areas. Like, for me, I hate planning, but sometimes I have to force myself to do it to accomplish the things I want to accomplish. So maybe you understand that from your perspective. So I find that the Knight of Pentacles often comes in when I need to slow down and think things out properly and not rush in too quickly and not go off half-cocked and not, scream my head off and throw a bloody temper tantrum, but to plan and pull together resources and give it more time than I would like to give it and, really think things out in an appropriate way and all of that boring stuff that's really important sometimes. And temperance is like I'll say it's similar, although you might not really think it's very connected, and maybe justifiably so in your case, because like for me, temperance always comes in when I'm doing too much of this or that. And for a lot of clients of mine who, if they're, okay, drinking too much wine, smoking too much pot, smoking too many cigarettes, not exercising enough, being really self indulgent with food, that's a biggie for almost everybody. Um, Having a bad internal dialogue, like people will really beat themselves up um, in a really kind of antagonistic way that it's hard to believe anybody could even think about themselves that way, let alone talk to themselves in their own head that way. So temperance comes in to say, hey, mellow it out. Don't do that. Don't do whatever the thing is that you're doing too much. That's bad for you. Let's purify. Let's calm down. Let's, you know, do the good thing. We've got an angel here telling us to do the good thing. And then, you know, it's for your own protection. It's for your own peace. It's for your own salvation, if you will. So this makes sense to me, even if it doesn't make sense to you the way I described it. I bet you can make sense of it to you in a different way that you can apply it to your life. So the next three cards are going to be about our influences or our obstacles or whatever's going on. So we Aries like our action, and here we've got two very active cards, the King of Wands and the Page of Wands. So being that you're Aries, these might apply to you. The page usually applies to a young person. You typically a teenager, a child, or a very young adult. Now it can be for somebody older if you're very, very youthful in your spirit, if you've got lots of energy, if you have a young mind and you think like a younger person and you like to do youthful things, then the Page of Wands could possibly be you. I think I connect more with the Page of Wands, although I would, if I had to pick a court card for myself, I would probably, because it's typical, pick the Queen of Wands just based on my age and the fact that I'm female. So, you know, you can monkey around with that however you like. But at the same time, I might go for the King of Wands because, you know, I've got some of those qualities too. So it just depends on how you perceive yourself, basically, because it is about you, right? So the King of Wands is very decisive, very authoritative, runs a great kingdom, very social. He's very strong, has no problems making decisions. He is very good with people, incredible, great communicator, lots of fun, has a definite fun side. So does the Page. Now, the Page can sometimes mean a message is coming in, something that will relate to some action you want to take. I mean, it could be any action. It could be starting a business. It could be anything you can think of, starting a hobby. Excuse me, I still have my allergy attacks because it is spring and it seems like there's so much pollen of every sort out there. I'm so sorry, but if I stop recording every time I start hacking, I will never put anything up on YouTube. So, very active cards, both. He or she often represents, you know, starting something, learning the skills you need to start something up. Say you're starting a business. You need to learn a lot to make that happen. I mean, sometimes we start things on a very small scale, but before you know it, you have to learn all about a million aspects of the situation. So that's a good example. Say it's you want to learn to paint, you know, whether it's wall painting or picture painting. Either one requires tools and knowledge of how to go about it and all that jazz. So either one, there's learning involved. I mean, what can we do that does not involve learning? I can't think of a darn thing. Maybe breathing, maybe the things that come naturally, but you know, you can probably even learn better ways of doing that. Let's face it, we can. So the king is more of an authority figure. I won't tell you that there's no young person who could be the king because there are people who could be, but it's not as common as it being somebody who's got tons of life experience. That would be more common for this guy. Um, like I say, it does not have to be that way. It doesn't. I mean, I'm sure we all know some very young people who have done lots of great accomplishments. And it's more about that, because that is such a confidence builder. As you do more and you do more and you do more, you gain more confidence and more decision making power and more authority and more people coming to you and all of that. So, how does this apply to right now? So, they're both very active cards. They are things that you want to do. Aries is a very active type of a sign that represents a batch of people that tend to like to dive in headfirst and do things and take things on. And um, sometimes we do take things on before we're really ready, but hey, you got to start somewhere, right? So, yes, I will condone us doing the things that we do because most of the time they're pretty fabulous, let's be honest here. And then we've got this fantastic card, the Nine of Cups, which is all about celebration and abundance and, sometimes hospitality and being able to throw parties and bring people in. And, it's very powerful to add people to yourself. It's very powerful to bring people in. And you are doing something for them by opening up your business or home or life or, friendship zone, whatever it is, and then they bring you something. I'm not saying that's why you do it. It isn't. You do it because you want to. But then as you add these people to your life, it brings you something more. I mean, let's start at the very basic level. So you have a child for whatever reason, whatever your reasons are, because different people actually do have different reasons for this. And you probably think at first of the things that you can do for the child because when he or she is a baby, that they are, getting most of their stuff from you. But as time goes on, what they do to enrich your life is so amazing. Like it's usually so much more than you ever could have imagined, and that's true of all the people you bring into your life, or, it is if you're bringing good people in there. So that's really positive. Like there is nothing bad going on here. I know I was not jumping up and down for joy over the Hierophant, but there's really nothing wrong with that card. And sometimes it means something quite lovely and positive and adding to your life in a really beneficial way. So the last three cards are going to be the outcome or as we move into the future, possibly some advice if it looks like something to add advice to. Here we go. Active, active, active. And the High Priestess. Interesting. Interesting that she's here next to this card, and that does happen. I mean, every combination happens at some point or another. Well, you know what? That isn't even true, because I haven't experienced every single combination in the world in, an entire lifetime of reading cards. So let's look at this. Okay, these two cards I've had come up together really often lately. So the Ten of Wands. This card is, as you can see, this guy looks like he's very burdened by carrying all these wands or sticks. And he can't even see through the wands the way he's carrying them. And it just looks like the most inefficient way of doing anything that you could ever possibly imagine. And it is. Also, he's got too much. I mean, even if he's carrying them wrong, it's still just too darn much. So something has to be done here. This is just not going to work very well. It may work because, yes, he's still carrying those sticks. He's getting them to their destination. He's doing it. He may not be enjoying it. He may not be able to see clearly or be comfortable or be very satisfied because of the way he's doing it, but he is still doing it. So we can't really call it a negative card. It's just negative in that there needs to be some improvement here. So if there were a piece of advice to be taken out of this card in and of itself, it's find a better way to be doing this. This card often represents our work. It does not have to be, but it often does. So if you're doing a task or multiple tasks, which is probably what this represents, find a better way. Find a way to take a break so that you can be more refreshed. Find a way to not take on all the work at once if that's a possibility. Sometimes it's scheduling things differently so that you're not doing everything all at the same time. And maybe there's a way to ask for some help in the situation so that there's somebody else who can take a couple of those sticks off your hands. Whatever it may be, find the way to do this better for you so it's not so burdenous to your, way of going through your day. This card can mean several things. It can mean a training exercise. It often comes up when people are doing martial arts because it's like, war game type stuff, fighting games. So, it comes up sometimes when people are interested in going into the military or when they actually have. So it can be all of that, training exercises, learning to fight, all those kinds of things. So if you're in martial arts and you get it, that makes total sense. But it also can mean arguing. It can mean arguing that's just banter, like the kind that you go back and forth with your spouse and nobody's angry or upset about it. Or it can mean actual all out, go for the kill arguing. So, and I do find when these two cards come together, often it means that work is a huge burden because of something going on with other people. It doesn't have to mean you guys are screaming across the office. It could mean, some backstabby stuff. Somebody's trying to get your job. They're trying to undermine you at work. A lot of bad stuff goes on in offices, even in the nicest office, because there are always some bad people there. Sometimes it's like really damaging office gossip, that kind of thing. So whatever it is, get to the bottom of it and deal with it the best way you can, which is different in different situations. But we've got the High Priestess here. So the High Priestess is a very strong female power card. It's not exclusively a female issue where people are doing the gossiping and the bad stuff behind the scenes, but I'm not going to lie, it is very often typical with women in offices. I've worked in enough offices to know that if you get a bunch of women, they will have jealousies against other women, and they will often do some pretty nasty things, making up stories, all kinds of things. If you work in an office where none of this occurs, then more power to you, because that is the rarity. It really is. So I know I will get letters or something about, oh, women never do that, but I say they do. So if you want to tell me I'm wrong, you have every right to your opinion. But we have a very strong female power card here, the High Priestess. Doesn't have to be female. It can be the part of a man that has these aspects also, by all means. But if you are a female or if you are a male with a strong female intuition or component that you can easily tap into, it's telling you to go within and think about whatever this is and find a solution. Now, her solution is often quite peaceful. It could be sort of a turn the other cheek situation. And kind of just see if it blows over. I don't know about you, Aries, but this Aries who's doing your reading is not so great at that. So I would probably want to find out what's going on and take an action. I'm kind of notorious for always feeling the need to take an action. But when I read for other people, I do try to give them all the alternatives. Sometimes waiting just to see, because sometimes when you wait, let's be honest here, sometimes when you just wait and sit back and really open up your senses, you will hear things that you might not have heard if you were busy, running around trying to take that action. So think it out. I would take this card. I'm not sure how, well, you know what? That isn't really true. I do know exactly how this applies to my life. I always like to say, oh, I can't imagine what that would mean. But yeah, I do. I know exactly what it means. Sometimes you just don't really want to think about it at the moment because it might be a little bit heavy duty, which is definitely my case. So this is a good reminder to go within, to trust your intuition, to sit back and not flip out, and just to figure things out and make a reasonable plan, just like the Knight of Pentacles would, because he's also that guy. And Temperance is all about walking the middle line. Yes, it's about not drinking too much wine and ending up under the table, but it's also that thing about walking the middle line, not always being Mr. or Miss Extreme or Ms. or whatever you go by. I tend to be extreme. And so I think that's one of the reasons Temperance shows up, to say, hey, tone it down a little bit. So, Aries, that's what I've got for you this week. I hope that it helps, and I hope you have a fantastic week. I've been really enjoying those of you who have written me emails and told me how the readings have applied to your life. That has been fantastic. I'd love to hear more. So have a fantastic week, and I wish you the very, very best. Talk to you soon.